In the UK, Jeremy Corbyn, a socialist, a bearded socialist, a bearded vegetarian socialist, a bearded vegetarian socialist who rides a bike, a bearded vegetarian socialist who rides a bike and protested against the Iraq War and protested against racism and protested for Syrian refugees. In fact, after he was elected Labor Party leader, which this bearded socialist was this past weekend, his first speech as leader, one of his first speeches as leader was to a Syrian refugee rights rally in London. So this is a very different type of leader than Tony Blair, to say the least. This is a very different type of leader, arguably, than Ed Miliband. This is Bernie Sanders to the 10th power. This guy makes Bernie Sanders look almost centrist. But of course, in some ways, the playing field is to the left in Britain. And there's just a couple of quick points about this. I mean, I don't know, to be really blunt with you, if this guy could be elected prime minister. I don't know. Yeah.
Did you see what David Cameron said?
I did. And why don't you, I'm going to cue that for you because I want you to read that. I'm going to say that. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So I don't know if he could be elected prime minister. That's several years away. I do know that the corporate Blair wing of the Labor Party is having a meltdown. And everything for them, see, what's so fascinating is that they call themselves, and most corporate technocrats and most political parties in the world think of themselves as modernizers. The ultra-modern, the sleek, the people who are with it, the people who understand technology, who understand globalization, who understand the interconnected nature of today's world. Well, their reference points are to the 1980s, which supposedly this guy brings the Labor Party back to, when, of course, most voters today, many voters at least, including in a Brit in this leadership contest that brought Jeremy Corbyn to power, were born in the 80s. Their politics were formed by Tony Blair invading Iraq and by deregulating the city. And in fact, also by some progressive accomplishments that he actually did have in office that are talked about less because of all these other disasters. So they say he's bringing them back to the 80s with his sort of unapologetic socialism, including on issues, again, he wants to stimulate the economy in his anti-austerity. Well, you know who agrees with that? Every single credible economist in the world. He wants to renationalize the railway system, which is an incredibly popular position in the UK. And he's willing to speak out for Syrian refugees, which any member of any decent, moral center-left party would want to do. And then they say, in 1997, Tony Blair found the perfect formula. And you still hear people saying that today with the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders is too far left. Bernie Sanders is this. Bernie Sanders is that. What the center is in today's world and what people desire has radically transformed. And the pieces are still in flux. The chessboard is still not arranged. We don't know all of the ways that this is going to play out. But we do know that the same old tired, plutocratic, technocratic, pseudo-modernist politics is a dead end for everybody but the self-referencing elite. And it's also becoming an electoral failure. And that's why Jeremy Corbyn not only won, he won in a massive landslide. So if I had one, I would raise a vegetarian falafel sandwich to his victory, and we'll see how he does.